Well, g'day team, welcome back to another one. Just want to do a quick recap of the Fiji versus All Blacks game that's just finished in San Diego. It was a good one, I hope you enjoyed it, but let's try and sort of unpack it. I'll give you a few thoughts on my take of the game. But anyway, the last time that these two teams met was a two-test series in New Zealand in July 2021. New Zealand winning both relatively comfortably, 57-23 in the first test and 60-13 in the second test. And look, the Fijians had quite a successful World Cup performance, really. And if I was to compare how well they played in the World Cup to this game, they're probably a step or two back. And so anyway, the All Blacks had a couple of Fijian players in their ranks with Severis and Imani Narawa. So Severis getting the start, but and as we know with the Fijian Drua team, they didn't travel very well. They didn't win any games in Super Rugby. Well, they haven't won a game in Super Rugby level away from home outside of Fiji. I think they won every game in Fiji this year bar one. That was against one of the top teams, the Hurricanes. So anyway, winning away from home is a little bit of a challenge for Fiji, but they did do well in the last World Cup, so that kind of puts that theory to bed a little bit. But anyway, the first half was 4-1, All Blacks dominating, playing pretty well and scoring 4 pretty good tries. Had to work for it, certainly in that first 15 to 20 minutes. Fiji scored one try and they missed out another one with a knock-on over the line, so that was pretty unfortunate for them. But yes, both halfbacks in the first half went off injured. Frank Lamani for Fiji looked like he had hurt his shoulder from what I could tell. I was skipping over bits and pieces, so I sort of missed exactly what happened to him. And Cortez Ratama looked like he hurt his shoulder after being flung to the ground in a tackle. He looked really good up until that point, I must admit. Worth noting at this point of this video that I felt like, and I said it again I said it after Cortez Ratama's appearance against England last week, coming off the bench, certainly just tidied it up around the ruck, but there was purpose. So the passing was good. He's quick to the ball, but people know where the ball's going, and there's a plan. And it was pretty good to see that in this game, considering he is so new to the All Blacks. Missed tackles was probably the tail of the half. 27-9, I think it was. 27 missed tackles to Fiji. Scoreline was 26-5 at halftime. Scott Barrett so moving on to the second half, cover off just a couple of points, but Scott Barrett taking a player off the ball and getting penalised, that was what disallowed Caleb Clark's what would have been, I don't know, I lost count, but Caleb Clark had a try disallowed because Scott Barrett took a player off the ball. I don't know what was going on with Scott Barrett, I must admit. All I could think about was he was there, he was standing there, Scott Barrett wasn't doing anything. I must do something. So he hit the person the closest to him, but the Fijian player just wasn't even involved whatsoever. So that was an interesting move by Scott Barrett. And then Derry, the reserve lock, came on and he had a great turnover on the All Blacks 5 metre line. And then just a little while later, Tossi, the reserve prop, did the same thing. Very impressive key moments by those young fellas. And, the All Blacks did miss out on a couple of tries themselves as well, so it could have been worse. Fiji were tired and their line speed slowed, for most of that second half, really. So, it could have been worse there. But and that structure disappeared for them as well. They didn't have a lot of structure in that first half, to be fair. But the All Blacks, did pretty well because, we talk about sometimes the better teams lowering their performance to the performance of the team that they're playing against, which is quite common. But the All Blacks did sort of, I think, maintain most of their structure. It got quite loose in the second half, but late in the second half. But they did. I thought they did play pretty well. They had a set criteria, I think, of items that they wanted to sort of tick off, and I believe they did that. So Fiji sort of tied later, and certainly it got pretty loose in that last 15 minutes. Fiji managed to get their offloading game going, and but yeah, they just, as soon as they gained a bit of momentum, made an error or something would happen, or a bad kick or whatever, and just as they're starting to make progress and hand the ball over, George Bell scored his try. The reserve hooker for the All Blacks scored a try and debut, which is just awesome to see. You love seeing that sort of stuff. He scored that really good try in Super Rugby. I don't know if you can remember that, but worth a note. I do want to see a bit more of him. Wallace Satiti, he basically set up a try, but I thought he had good moments when his time on the field. Final score 47-5, 7 tries to 1. Missed tackles in the end, 25 to the All Blacks, 52 to Fiji. Fiji basically doubling theirs. The All Blacks, quite a few more in that second half. As I said, it did get pretty loose, and falling off tackles probably contributed to that. But no lost lineouts for the All Blacks. They did manage to get a couple, 2 lineout turnovers, which was really impressive. An area they would have been working on. However, they didn't have Murray Itoje upsetting their line-out this time. The All Blacks made 11 changes in terms of personnel, 11 changes from the England test, and that's just out of the starting lineup. Scott Barrett, Ardie Savia, Damien McKenzie and Sevu Reece were the only players that were retained from the starting lineup a week ago. 5 players on debut, and all of those players that were played on their debut played really well. I think there was moments that they should be proud of, and certainly very good signs for the future for the All Blacks. The young players just keep coming through, don't they? Glad they got an opportunity. They might be a little bit gutted that it wasn't on home soil for their debut, but I know that for Billy Proctor, his family was in the crowd, as he said after the game, so it's still an awesome moment. I don't think they get to play for the All Blacks, so that's bloody awesome for them. And Cortez Ratamo got his first start, unfortunately getting injured, so we'll have to wait and see. Despite all the changes, from that point of view, I felt the All Blacks still were well organised and well disciplined, and something that's not that would stand out to me compared with other times that there's been significant rotation like that. I feel like the coaching staff are sort of just nailing a few things with the players, but they worked with certain combinations, and you can see that those players work quite well together. From a Fiji point of view, I think they'll be a little bit disappointed with their effort, really. I mean, that's just what my thoughts on that. As I said, they did take a step back from their World Cup performances, but just too many errors, too many missed tackles. They were physical, but they didn't really work as a team or as a unit, and which is kind of expected with players coming together from all over the world, really. They're playing all over the place. I know that there was, if you compared the Fiji and Drua semi-final team to what this Fiji team, in terms of the lineup today, there was quite a lot of changes. So look, for them to come together, I think they've had 2 weeks since their game against, was it Georgia? And I wanted to see the Fijian backs in more space, as we do. We love to see Fiji play, don't we? But the ABs just didn't give them anything to work with, really. I really wanted to see Semi Radradra wind up and get stuck into it, particularly. But Radradra particularly was well contained, really. Radradra is one of my favourite players, really. He'd be in my top 5 in anything, but I've enjoyed watching him as far back as when he played for the Parramatta Eels in the NRL. But from an All Blacks point of view, I think overall they'll be really, really happy with that performance, or relatively happy. They'll have ticked basically all the boxes for this game in terms of their goals and what they wanted to get out of it. They were provided with opportunities to work on a few areas, as I said, the line out in particular, but a few areas that needed a bit of improvement after England test. They were provided with the opportunity to give young guys on their debut and a bit of experience that you couldn't throw them into. It's pretty difficult to throw them into the mix against a top team like England, and again against South Africa and Australia and Argentina, that gets a little bit more difficult as well. Look, I liked the players that backed up from last week as well. I thought that was quite intentional. I mean, from Scott Barrett's point of view, he's captain. He's going to want to play every single game, isn't he? He won't want to sit on the bench. That's certainly his captain. But don't forget that he was injured a lot during the Super Rugby campaign, so he hasn't had a lot of game time as well. So he's going to need more. He'll just play as much as he can. I think at the moment, play the whole way through this All Blacks season. And then you had D-Mac, Damian McKenzie. He needs more time at test level, I think. Certainly running at 10 if they're going to stick with him. And then Savia, coming from Japan, needs more time against probably stronger opposition. That's what I'd put it. He hadn't played since the Japan season, between Japan's season finishing and the All Black season starting, and played for a little while, so he's going to just want that more game time as well. And from an All Blacks point of view, selection point of view, they needed to have the experience around quite a lot of youth in that side, and Hardy Savia is going to provide that. So they had sort of 2 or 3 key men in that forward pack. So that was a logical choice, and for Severis, I guess he loves the opportunity to play against his home country. Played quite a big season for the Crusaders, and he played both All Blacks tests against England, but he may get a rest or whatever, because the All Blacks do have quite a few wingers to choose from. And from a Caleb Clarke point of view, still in hot form after a great season with the Blues this year. He scored 2 tries, but it could have been 4. One was disallowed from the Scott Barrett penalty, tackle off the ball, and then the other one was when Caleb Clarke actually caused the created penalty himself. But you're loving the props available at the moment. What depth there is in that position. They all scrum very well, quite young, and definitely play and get around the park quite well. D-Mac and Barrett, in terms of that combination, I think that's the best for mine. Barrett at fullback and D-Mac at 10, but they can swap around. It looks like that D-Mac is going to be the 10. But yeah, they both work and talk together very well, and then we'll just have to wait and see what happens with Will Jordan when he comes back from injury. So anyway, quite a few thoughts. I don't think there's a whole lot you can really take out of this one. Certainly it was a good result from and a platform to sort of continue momentum from the All Black for the All Blacks versus England tests. A great opportunity for the Fijian players. I mean, I bet you if you ask them what team would you like to play against the most in international rugby, and it would highly likely be the All Blacks. And they don't get to do that very often. I think it was 7 or 8 games. I think this was maybe number 8 in terms of all-time Fiji versus All Blacks, and Fiji haven't won any of them, but they don't get those opportunities very often. I thought this was a really cool opportunity and quite a cool thing to do in America, promoting the game, probably makes some revenue for both teams. Certainly Fiji's going to make a fair bit of it out of it, you'd hope. It should be more about them, right, in terms of making revenue. And yeah, look, a bit close after the England tests. Maybe this could have been the first game of the international calendar for the All Blacks, but anyway, it was what it was, and I think we've got about 3 weeks before the Rugby Championship starts, so I'm going to try and make some 1 or 2 videos in the build up to that, because it's going to be one heck of a series this year. If you've watched this, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the game. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment on any thoughts you have, please, and look out for the next one. Thanks.